Some people go to the restaurant. Let's see, I gave a sermon on going to a restaurant. So how much time did you spend preparing a meal and your favorite food? You know, how much time did you spend for God? You know, for your favorite people and your families? How much time did you spend raising your children to be good people? And you say, well, some of them have bad history. Oh, well, it's hard to look at their bad histories and they want to say, well, I'm Italian, I'm German, all this other stuff. They say, be American. So they say, well, the Germans, they say, Hail Hitler. You got these neo-Nazis and stuff. And they like to go, Hail Hitler, Hail Hitler. And then they see a president, with his hand out, and they go, oh, it's Hitler. No, it's like this. They say, you want to make spaghetti? Cool. I went to New York. I made spaghetti with some Italian people, and we had a cook-off. I made the best spaghetti. I can tell you why. I never tell people the secret ingredients I put in my spaghetti, but I'll give you a few. One is I use grape jelly in the meatballs because I use Swedish meatballs in the spaghetti. And then, the other thing is I use some German ingredients in there. I'm German, Indian, and Irish, So I tell them, I says, well, the Germans, and the Americans, it's like, well, the Germans made a mistake. They did a bunch of bad things, and everybody wants to be proud of being Germans. And I say, well, people learn from their mistakes. So I say, oh. So they say, Hail Hitler. And I say, no. I says, let me give the Brevard Sheriff's Department a little education down there in Florida. They said, where you hail from? I says, the good fight. And what's the good fight? Well, that's the good force. The force for good. So we say, well, there's neo-Nazis, it was Hail Hitler, Well, we made Neo on Matrix, neo-Nazis, so they didn't have to be neo-Nazis no more. They could be Neos, force for good. They had that, and instead of, Hail Hitler, hail the good fight, I give my heart to you, see? And then the Americans are like, across my heart, and they say the Pledge of Allegiance, and we're like, hey, we'll catch you if you fall. It's like brothers in arms, see? So we're like, well, you got the Germans and Americans working together. So then, we got British intelligence, and we got American intelligence. We got, the Israeli intelligence, which is like everywhere. And we got sign language. So they're like, but they got this bad history with Hitler, So, they say, well, how about instead of Hail Hitler, you just say, hey, I love you. I'll give you my heart if you need it, And they say, what's the heart? Well, you can't see it, but I'm handing you my heart. And they says, oh, okay, well, we'll accept the apology, and we apologize too, see? It's World War II, everybody forgets about these things. So I was like, I was growing up, everybody tell me history wasn't important. And I'm like, history wasn't important. You know how much torture I went through as a kid? Psychedelic drugs and everything else. I'm learning about all this war history and war tactics and influential people and psychological operations. And I'm like, hey, maybe we could do something to help those people, and give them something to look forward to. It's like, man, a lot of people did a lot of bad stuff. It's like, remember Hail Hitler, neo-Nazis. It's like, oh, hold on, here, I have a heart. See, the Hancock movie, they're going to put the heart on the moon. It says, here, I have a heart, See, this is like catching. Cross my heart, gotcha. That's the promise. See, call those the promise keepers. He says, what's that? Oh, peacekeepers. He's got all these space agencies and stuff with all this intel and stuff. Well, what's intel inside? Well, it begins in the heart. It was like, wait, if you put a seed in the mind, what's like inception? You see, use psychological operations for good, then you create a better world. That's a world of worlds. And everybody goes, hey, we're praying for kingdom come. When the kingdom comes, it's like, hey, we got the kingdom of God. It's like, no, we've got kingdoms, plural, kingdoms of God. And they call that, they got this name or that name or this God or that God. And they had that problem in the old days. It says, kingdoms of good. See? Kingdoms of good. Now if you take God and you say G-O-D, and you say all around everywhere is good, then you add another O, and you got the complete circle of planet saying kingdoms of good. See? Doesn't matter what language you speak. That's something I said before, but you know. So I'm driving through Illinois. And I was like, hey, you guys get that yet? Well, it's the ill and intelligent systems trying to get an antivirus going. So I said it's on Facebook back in 2011. Said I'm gonna drop you off some help here and there, some psychological help. So I figured maybe if I physically drove through some of these states and took some notes and dropped a few messages, they'd be like, oh man, that's cool. It's like, yeah, man. So right now I'm at the dull-eared generals, because sometimes some of those generals, they get frustrated and like to argue with each other. So I was like, well, that's because sometimes they get hard of hearing and they got dull-eared generals. So it's like, well, maybe we could open their ears so they could hear a little bit better. It's like, yeah, sometimes. Must be a Jedi. Yeah, Jedi Knights. That's like a, worldwide military police force. It's like a MPs. It's like, what's MPs? It's a media protection service. So you mean a media protection service run through the satellites and goes to everybody's TVs? It's like, yeah, telepathic vision. In case they didn't have telepathy, maybe we could help them out with a little bit of telepathy, through television. Maybe the aliens and angels can get along. We call that the American Association for Miracles. That's what I like to call the Miracle Network. See? Miracle Networks.